Let's take a look at problem 3 on homework 5.3. It's actually listed as question 3, but it never asks an actual question. So this is one of the things that bugs me about Wiley. That's a really minor thing that bugs me about Wiley. But that's all beside the point. We're looking at the derivative, and on the interval that we can observe, f prime of x is negative. So since f prime of x is negative, we say that f of x is decreasing on the interval that we can see. We know our new thing that we've added to this, so we know that the function f of x is decreasing on this interval, and the area indicates how much the function decreases. Area is how much f of x decreases. That's the piece that we've added here in chapter 5. When we were studying derivatives, when the derivative is negative, the function is decreasing. Now, when the derivative is negative, the function is decreasing, and the area tells us how much the function decreases. So, we're asked to calculate we're asked to put the following things in increasing order. So we're asked to put the following in increasing, order. And then the thing, we have f of 4 minus f of 3. We have f of 3 minus f of 2. Now, all these things look really weird. And the f of 4 minus f of 2 divided by 2. So this is a really weird problem. This is the kind of problem that looks like it was taken from some kind of standardized test. Because standardized tests always have these weird angles that come at you from weird problems that come at you from these weird angles, which is why when you're preparing to take a standardized test, you don't work on content at all. You look at past examples of tests that they've run to see the weirdo questions that the test writers create to come at you from these weird angles. It's like explaining something where you have a very clear picture of something in your head and you're trying to put it in words and explain it to some other person. It's like trying to describe a pineapple to someone who has never seen a pineapple before. And then when you say like, well, it looks like a palm tree on top, and they're like, oh, well, what's a palm tree? Like, oh man, this is gonna be really difficult. And you say, when you cut it open, it's yellow inside. It's like, oh, well, what's yellow? What do you mean yellow? And then you have to break out your spectrum and figure out what wavelengths they're talking about. And this is what we call yellow. You know what I'm talking about? So this is my speculation about what we should be looking at, considering the chapter that we're in and the structure of things that we have to deal with. We want f of 4 minus f of 3, and we're looking at the derivative. So my test writing instincts say, I think they want us to look at f of 4 minus f of 3 because they want us to consider the integral from 3 to 4 of f prime of x dx. This is just me speculating what this question is based on. And to me, this is what jumps out at me when it says f of 4 minus f of 3. Look at that difference. So then that tells me we need to look at the area between 3 and 4. So we need to look at this area here. Let's actually give it a name. Let's call that A1 because it was the first thing that's listed. The green area. So f of 4 minus f of 3 will be given by the definite integral from 3 to 4 of f prime dx, which is going to be the area bounded by the graph of f prime and the x-axis between x equals 3 and x equals 4. The next one, f of 3 minus f of 2, is going to be the integral from 2 to 3 of f prime of x dx, just using the same thinking. And that means it's going to, this is going to be the area, and we'll call it A2. That's going to be this area in here, A2. And so this is kind of what makes me angry about this particular problem. Is it even between 2 and 4? It's a little bit, is it even between 2 and 4 in that little cup, or is it kind of skewed this way? So is it more from 2 to 3, or is it or is it about the same? It's too hard to tell. They could have done a better job of thinking about what they wanted to say and then made it clear. But if you read this as 2 and 4 have the same value, f prime of 2 and f prime of 4 are about the same, and f prime of 3 is about the same, the techniques that we have at this point, it's like, oh, wow, those are the same. How can we put them in increasing order? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So we have to look, and to my mind, it looks like from 3 to 2 is going to have more area. It looks like area 2 is larger because it looks like this U is kind of skewed, is kind of pushed over towards the 2 side. The bump between x equals 2 and x equals 4 looks a little pushed to the left. So that's the way I'm reading this problem. What that means is that the area A2 looks larger than the area A1, but the definite integral get rid of this. Since the function is negative, these areas are also negative. So since the derivative is negative, these areas are going to be reported as negative by the definite integral. So to put them in increasing order, it looks like f of 3 minus f of 2 is going to be the smallest because it's the most negative. So it looks like A2 is the most negative, so that would be the smallest one. Then A1 would be larger because it's less negative. So A1 is larger since less negative. So that's just reading those two areas, A1 and A2. They're going to be negative. So when we want to put them in increasing order, we got to flip it around again and start with the most negative, which is the most area, but under the x-axis. The next thing we have to look at is the integral, 1/2 f of 4 minus f of 2, which is the average value of the integral from 2 to 4. So this is going to be 1/2 the integral from 2 to 4 of f prime of x dx. The way we read this is the average value of f from 2 to 4. So this is the average, and so it's going to end up in the middle. So the order that we should go is least is going to be f of 3 minus f of 2, because that looks like the most negative. In the middle, we'll have the average, so that'll be 1/2 the f of 4 minus f of 2. And then the least negative one will be where we ended up, f of 4 minus f of 3. So I believe this is the order that we want to put. On this problem, they have you making some really strange calls. And so, I mean, if I was able to talk to anybody about problems on my call, what were you thinking when you wrote this problem? And most likely the person was like, I was just trying to get paid. And they said, do something with area. I think the key comes down to reading reading f of 4 minus f of 3 as the definite integral from 3 to 4 of f prime of x dx, which is going to be the area bounded by the graph and the interval. All right, let's pause the video here and look for some more problems.